Hey YouTube, wanted to do a tutorial or how to enable Adobe Digital 5.1, actually how to set it up on a Sound Blaster Z sound card, and probably pertains to other sound cards as well. The documentation on these things is just horrible, and I finally figured it out, and I wanted to share my information with y'all. So before we get started on how to set it up, the way I have my computer set up is basically through an audio receiver with 5 speakers, basically. And I wanted to use that setup. I didn't want to use the actual sound card speaker lines. Instead, I'm using a digital optical cable. So that was my primary method of sound for my system. And I bought this card because it had Dolby Digital Live. My receiver has Dolby Digital, and I wanted everything in surround sound. And I come to find out that it's very temperamental on how you set it up. So I quickly found out that you needed 2 methods, or you had to have 2 setups. One for just regular computing, and you don't need Dolby Digital 5.1. And that also includes when you're using like the Netflix app. The Netflix app is actually Dolby Digital, or is 5.1 already, so you don't need to do live with it. Or you have an MKV file or an AVI file that's already encoded in 5.1 or MP4. So you really don't want to be using Dolby Digital Live during those sessions, because the re-encoding of 5.1, I found it to degrade the audio a little bit on those applications. And also, you can't control the volume from within the computer when you're in Dolby Digital Live 5.1, because you actually have to use the receiver. So I only use Dolby Digital Live when I'm playing video games, or I want an application to be at 5.1 that is not natively Dolby Digital. So what we need to do is kind of understand the Windows sound system. First of all, so we're going to click on the volume button on the bottom and go to playback devices. So I have several ones here. I got my headphone. I have my NVIDIA video card that's connected to a TV. So we can ignore those for now, because some of you won't have those, obviously. But if you have the Sound Blaster C, you should have the Sound Blaster C speakers, which is the ones coming straight out of the card, and the SPDIF out, which is your optical cable. All right, so when you want Dolby Digital Live, when you don't want Dolby Digital Live, what you're going to do is you're going to make the SPDIF out your default device. That's very important. It has to be your default device. This is set to my default communication device, which is fine. The microphone's connected to that, so that's why that's there. But when you're not using it, Dolby Digital Live, you want that to be the default device. And if you actually go into the properties here, it's very basic. You want to make sure that whatever your receiver can receive, for example, mine is Dolby Digital, and they can only do up to 48 kilohertz. So that's what I've checked off. Levels are pretty much, I think these are pretty much just regular settings. The problem is that this is only going to allow you to do 2-channel studio quality, which is fine for just everyday computing. Now, this way, without Dolby Digital Live actually turned on, you can actually use your volume control, and everything works fine as normal PC does. Once again, once you enable Dolby Digital 5.1, that's out the door, and you actually have to use the receiver to control the volume. All right, so here's what was really hard to understand. When you go into the application for Sound Blaster, and you go to Cinematics, and you actually turn on Dolby Digital Live, here's the thing. Now you won't get any sound going through your system for any application, with the exception of this with the Sound Blaster application itself. So if you do all the test sounds, it'll work fine. Like if you go to speaker and click on them, they'll work. They'll actually sound. But when you go to an application, it won't work. It's annoying as hell, actually. All right. So what I found out is when you either do Dolby Digital Live, I couldn't test DTS, but I'm pretty sure it's the same for DTS. You have to make the speakers the default device. And at this point, here's what I'm thinking is happening is that Creative Labs or Sound Blaster and this may be the case for other cards, is using this device to actually do the encoding, and then this device to actually push it out to the receiver. So at this point, my receiver itself, once I clicked on this Adobe Digital Live, is actually saying 3.2 on it itself. So it detected that the signal is Dolby Digital. But if you have this set as default, you're not going to get any sound from any application. You have to set the speakers as the default application when doing Dolby Digital Live. Once again, like I said, now at this point, the volume control is out the door. It doesn't work. You actually have to use the receiver, which is a little annoying if your receiver is kind of far like mine. And yes, you can leave it on like this as well and just live with that fact. And it works great. What I found, like I said also before, is that when you're using or you're viewing other Dolby Digital content that's native, it sometimes degrades the quality a little, in my opinion. I heard some just hiccups here and there. Not too bad, but it annoyed me enough to say, all right, so when I'm doing normal computing, I'm going to disable Dolby Digital Live, and I'll make this the default device. All right, I hope that helped you guys out there that are trying to get this working. Frustrating as hell. Trust me, I know. But hey, hopefully you get it to work now. Thank you. Have a good one.